Let's see. Does this get it going? Let me know if you see the video. It says we're live. Let's see if you guys get anything. Let me know if it's coming through. I swear. Okay, well, fuck it. Here we go. Um, this is Voltage Control Lab, Spring Break Edition. It's March 26th, Thursday. Uh, Time marches on, and here we go with the Dancing Baby with Nyan Cat. Uh, and we're going to continue with our techno track that we started yesterday. Hopefully, everybody who was having problems is going to make it back in here if anyone was having problems other than me. But all right, glad you guys are all with us. Thank you so much for joining us again. My name is Joe. I go by Computo. That's my performance artist name. Excuse me. Um, I'm just to trying to get this whole intro thing a little bit more uniform. So maybe I'll try it for real this time. My name is Joe. I'm a electronic music producer and educator from Los Angeles. And I teach currently at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, as well as Icon Collective in Burbank. And this is my YouTube channel. Thanks for coming and joining us. I also have another YouTube channel with some music on it. You can look up Computo on YouTube. Good luck finding it because Computo is also apparently the name of a um, subsection of cumbia and um, Latin popular music, apparently. So I have to compete with that on YouTube too. But here we are. Um, Also, just made available a couple of old modular synth sets on my SoundCloud. If you guys are interested in checking those out, they're about an hour or so each, and they're from a couple of years ago. And if you scroll down past the house music that I've made recently on my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/computo, then you will surely find those those live sets. Um, and so today, a couple of things. We're going to take a look over here at the DPO, at least in use um, in the track that we have going right now, the track that we started yesterday. If you missed yesterday, we built a techno track or started building a techno track. I think next time we do this, we'll move a little bit faster through the process. And I'll let you guys ask some questions and do the things, answer the questions as we go because 2 hours to get halfway through a track might not be the ideal situation. I'd like to kind of plow through it all and get some stuff done. So, you know, the where did we leave off yesterday? Let's load it up. Let's bring up our project and see what we had. We might need some more variations. We might need some more other musical stuff. Notice, look, my video preview says this video is private, so hopefully other people aren't having that issue. But we'll find out. Um, Also, interesting times right now watching professional musicians get into live streaming because now they're all having to deal with the same stuff that the rest of us YouTubers have had to deal with and video makers have had to deal with for ages in terms of copyright claims and strikes. And maybe now having the rest of the music industry dealing with the same stuff, uh, we'll be able to get a little bit of support. But um, yeah, all right. That is the dancing baby from the 1990s. I mean, got to have the dancing baby, right? Okay, let's see if this will actually. Ah, there it goes. It loaded up. Okay, so yesterday we made a few things, right? Oh, great call, HR. Nine Inch Nails released a new album today, Ghosts 5 and 6, it seems. The screen is very blurry. Maybe give it a second. It might have been buffering. Let's see. Let me try reloading my YouTube page again. Let me know if the screen is still blurry. Okay. Well, we can at least listen through some of these parts, see what we were working on yesterday. Here's one of our kick drums. Here's a cruddy, dirty kick drum that's only going to hit occasionally. Here's our granular synth voice based on the sounds of jingling coins. We had this weird lead thing. We had. Now YouTube doesn't even want to load the page. Let's try that one more time. Here's a bass line. Some hi-hats. Maybe we'll collect all of this stuff in a similar area. And sorry, I'm not seeing your chat right now because Ableton is, or not Ableton, but YouTube is taking its sweet goddamn time to reload. And maybe it'll reload. We'll see. All right, well, we got a few things here. Maybe we can try. All right, so we got a couple of things happening here. My browser is farting out. I'm gonna close and reopen my browser. Sorry to waste time doing that, but I think Firefox crashed or something. Okay. We're still doing okay in terms of the CPU on this computer, but we'll see what happens when Firefox comes back. Let me know if you notice any other problems with the stream picture. And okay, now let's go into the studio. Yeah. Let's go back over to the dancing baby. We've got a cat on camera, not even talking about the Nyan cat, talking about the real cat back there on the couch, chilling, taking it easy. All right. Well, let's think for a minute. Maybe while this is doing its thing, let's think about the creative process because it probably makes sense to think about what some of our steps are in making a new track, a track from beginning to end, and thinking about what are the stages in that process. Um, we might have glanced over a few of those stages at this point, and we need to go back and check our landmarks and make sure that we're doing the right thing. For instance, if we think about kind of the beginning to the end stages of making, okay, that's part of my problem. If we think about the beginning to the end stages, right? The beginning, making a new piece of work, a new piece of art of any sort, really, might come from some point of inspiration, right? Something that may be, you know, some divine intervention idea, something that descends into our brain from who knows where, and we have some great, musical um, inspiration. Sometimes it might come from doing some sound design and finding the right sound in a preset bank, though that's maybe not quite as fun. Sometimes it might come from hearing another piece of music, going out, though that might not be the case so much these days. Going out and hearing something in a DJ set, hearing something that one of our favorite artists plays. And excuse me, got the hiccups or the coffee burps. And thinking about, well, what was that thing? I want to make something like that. And maybe from there we have to really start from scratch and go and find, what is that thing anyway? What was that inspiring moment that I heard at the club? I don't even know what to call it. And so we might have to do a little bit of research and development after that moment of inspiration. We try to record and write down those great ideas when they come to us. There we go. Now we got the internet back. Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us. Seems like maybe the screen is working. I can actually go back through your messages and see everything you guys wrote. Wambra, Anthony, Sarah, Juan, Juanan. Is it Juanan or Juan? HR, Grant, Lul. Is that your name? L00L. G Dizzle, Wambra, Noise Bleeder. Thanks everybody for coming in here. Astrofish. Okay, so as I was saying, the inspiration moment, right? The moment that we have a sudden boom. I have a great idea, right? And then we might need to know more about that great idea. This is kind of, I think, where we started yesterday. We had an idea together. Let's make a techno track, right? Wanna, one on. All right. And we looked and we said, what's techno anyway? Right? We did a Google search for techno, and we did a cursory Google search to see what are some tempo ranges for this style of music that we may or may not be familiar with. What are some of the technical musical elements that we commonly hear in this style, right? This is all stuff that might be useful. I call this the research and development stage of the composition process. We have what comes after the research and development stage. We start composing elements. We start actually making musical passages and phrases and musical ideas, and we kind of allow ourselves to brainstorm. We don't judge ourselves. We don't minimize our ideas and our tendencies to move in one direction or another. We try out lots of different things. And in that process, maybe we provide ourselves with hopefully more material than we might ever end up needing in our finished track. This is, I think, the process of letting our brain kind of spill out into the DAW or into our some sort of recorded format, all kinds of different ideas of maybe varying quality and we try not to filter ourselves too much. And then this is kind of where things start getting a little bit messy. We might do one thing a little bit, we might do another thing a little bit, but composition, then maybe sound design, right? We start thinking, Now, are the sounds that I've used good enough? Could they be better? Do they need some tweaking? Do they need some changing over time? Um, to get to the composition point, we might need some tools that get us most of the way there in terms of the sound design, and then um, in this sound design stage, we take some time out and we say, wait, now do I really have everything that I need? Are these sounds really the sounds that I want? I might have started my drum programming endeavor with one of those classic drum machines that we saw listed in the Wikipedia article for this particular style with a 909 or an 808. And we might say, oh, hey, let's write everything with that. And we do. We write, we create, we compose, we put the things, the notes in the places where we're likely going to need them, and then we maybe take some extra time out and say, now are those really the sounds that I want to use? Could they be better? Okay, this isn't necessarily jumping to mixing yet. We'll get there too. Um, and then maybe once we have some musical ideas, once we've got the sounds that we want, then we can start to think more about arrangement and putting these things, these ideas in some sort of beginning to end order. That part of it can be complicating. It can stifle people a lot of times. And so we need to maybe look for some tools that we can work with there. Things like using existing systems of existing patterns of arrangement that will take some pressure off our shoulders. We don't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to things like arrangement or chord progressions or things like that. We could try. You can certainly try. There's nothing that is stopping us from doing that. But we don't necessarily need to let those portions of the process become stifled and freeze our ability to get through to the rest of the process. So, inspiration, research and development, composition, sound design, arrangement, and then mixing, making sure that those sounds kind of can really uh, live up to to what we decided on in the sound design portion, right? We want to kind of like approach those sounds slightly with a little bit of attention towards their harmonic content. Are they live enough? Are they exciting enough? Are they remaining in a frequency range where they're not stepping on other sounds? Are they loud enough? Are they intense enough? These types of things. This is where we're starting to focus on just those final little bits on the sounds that we've refined, hopefully, in the sound design stage. And then we, of course, do some we do a mix of the whole collection of sounds. How do they sound together, right? And then we hopefully master this thing, and that might be a process of um, putting it in someone else's hands. It's a personal decision, but there's a reason why mixing and mastering have traditionally been put to um, another player in the game, and usually it has to do with having lost a lot of perspective on what the song really sounds like. By the time we get to mixing and mastering, we've spent so much time with that thing that we start to lose perspective and we start to get a little bit foggy about what's really happening in the track. So, just thinking about what are these stages. Of course, they're all going to blend together a bit in the middle. We might create sounds. We might kind of refine those sounds just because we're in the moment and we're feeling like it. And there's nothing really to stop us from doing that, of course. We can keep these things going and changing and ebbing and flowing forever. But I think these stages of the process are more important in terms of having some checkpoints, having moments where we can say, okay, now wait, let's go way back. Did I have a moment of inspiration? Or am I just making stuff for the sake of making stuff and maybe things aren't feeling so inspired? Did I create enough musical elements, or is this tune boring? Did I write one drum part and all of a sudden arrange it from beginning to end, and now I don't have anything else to go along with that, and we need to go back down to the composition stage and start filling in around that thing that I maybe presumptively or prematurely arranged, right? And then once we have some stuff, we might say, okay, now do I have everything that I need composition wise? Have I given some attention to each sound, right? Even if I chose a preset, even if I chose a drum rack or a drum machine that has its sound, are those the sounds that I want? If yes, great. Let's move along to the next sounds. But um, these are kind of checkpoints to make sure. Did I do that? Did I give some time to arrangement? Um, did I maybe we could even add into that process? Did I do something a little bit special in that department? Did I give it a little bit of interesting arrangement? Did I put a little bit of attention to that thing? Even if we're using existing forms, A B form, a build up, a drop, a breakdown, and build up, and a drop again. How could we make that more interesting? How could we put our personal touch on that, right? And then mixing and mastering, I think it just becomes extra important to check our work with other pairs of ears, to play our work for other people. This is the time when we really need someone who doesn't have the subjective view that we have gained on our work to say to slap us across the face and say, "Hey, what in the hell are you thinking? This doesn't sound right." Because we've lost perspective at that point. It's just like I liken it to having a child, right? The early stages, that child can do no wrong, and we've it can grow. It can be something that we maybe can't even imagine. And by teenage, we've lost all perspective on what this kid is really getting up to outside of our time with them. We think our kid is the apple of our eye and it can do no wrong. And then we get the call from the principal. That's the mix engineer. That's our colleague who maybe can give us some substantive feedback on our work because they have an opinion that we respect. And that principal is calling and saying, "Hey, your kid's getting in trouble. They're skipping school. They're spray painting the lockers in between class. They're smoking cigarettes in the bathroom." And we're going, "Oh no, my kid has the perfect bass line. I put the 909 in there, and the beat's the most fire beat ever. What do you mean it's not good?" Oh, that kick drum that I made is just too loud because I fell in love with it in the process, and I, you know, lost all perspective for all of the other pieces in my track. Oh, my voice in the song is way too quiet because I'm timid and I'm kind of afraid to sing, and I'm trying to hide it under all the other stuff that I did. This is the type of shit that after we've spent so much time composing something, um, we might really need to have a fresh perspective of somebody whose opinions matter, right? Not necessarily mom and dad's opinion, right? Like our friends and our loved ones might give us, they might blow smoke up our ass to tell us, "Oh, I love everything you do. It's great." Right? We might need to go to the fanatics, the people who we fear might say, "Oh, actually no, that's not techno. I know you like it, but techno isn't at 100 beats per minute, or that's a dubstep bass line, or whatever." Right? We might need those perspectives, and frankly, what they say doesn't matter. Maybe you've had this experience where we play a track for someone, and maybe even before we are coming down to hit the play button, we're about to hit it, and we're all of a sudden our subjective viewpoint starts to fade away, and we remember, "Oh shit, I was supposed to turn down the bass. I was supposed to change that kick drum out of there. Oh yeah, the arrangement isn't finished." And we start making those excuses out loud to the person whose opinion matters to us, and we're going, "Oh, well, just ignore the bass line, and I'm going to fix blah, 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 and I mean I meant to switch out the kick drum, but I'm not getting there." And then bam, we click the button, and we've already listed off all of the things that we need them to tell us, or we're hoping they could tell us. We've already been aware of all the things that needed to be changed. We just, we maybe got caught up in the fact that we love that bass sound, or we love working in Serum, or we got caught up making drum beat variations and completely forgot about the fact that before we play this for somebody, maybe we should have done a couple of other things. So it doesn't even necessarily matter what the person says to you about what needs to be changed or what their opinions are on it. The doesn't matter. Like, just like one on said here, the music is subjective. All art is subjective. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. It matters more importantly that you have that moment when you're about to play it for someone whose opinion does matter to you, and you start spilling out all of that stuff that you know already needs to be changed. Now, maybe we can find a way to mechanize or automate that process and give ourselves the shaking that we need to get to get to the heart of the process. But there's just that one experience that maybe we've all had that is universally useful to catch all of that stuff. So anyway, I digress. I'm sure we'll get back into that subject of how to catch your own fuck ups and everything. So, Wambra, we did not finish the track yesterday. I don't know that you missed too much. I can't remember when you left, but we're gonna finish it today. We're gonna try to. We'll see how far we get. The next one, I promise, I'm gonna try to do in under an hour or two, and like go from beginning to end, from nothing to nearly finished track in one session. But this one, I figure, well, it's since we've already gotten a bit indulgent in the time, we might as well just feel it out and see where it goes. Okay, so where were we? Let's go back to the desktop and let's consider what we had going on here. Okay. Just kind of like playing through some of these things. Yeah, we'll finish it eventually. We'll see. We'll see when we get there. So, okay, this is a time when maybe we want to play around with variations, right? So let's maybe take this hi-hat variation. Let's make a simplified version of it, just like the ands, right? And maybe in this one, this is where clip envelopes become really useful for variation creating. If we come down into this clip, which has just now one note, 1/8 note offbeat variation, and maybe we'll look in operator. We could even look in here, right? If you recall, this is the last thing we did yesterday. We created kind of a white noise hi-hat type of thing, and might move it a little bit higher in frequency. And I'll fix that GIF situation in the future, Wambra, I promise. We had our LFO doing a sample and hold every 16th note. Sample and hold is randomization generally. It doesn't have to be, but in the case of operator and this LFO, this is essentially randomizing according to a clock rate. So every 16th note, a different value is being set. And that's controlling this time knob down here, okay? So one thing we could do inside of this clip is we could turn off the LFO. So we'll just tell this thing, hey, anytime this clip is playing, the LFO should go off. And we could, this one I think will just always be on. Let's see. So a lot more uniform in this one. And then when we trigger that clip, we get a lot more of that variation. So we can create variations of a clip and not even have different notes in it, just have different effects or controls turning on and off, and we can get some, you know, a sense of motion that way. Anything that we create in a clip envelope like this, notice this is a different tab here than the notes tab. We can access these things down in any clip using this left hand set of show hide buttons. And so these clip envelopes are dedicated inside of this clip, but when we move things over to the arrangement view, it's going to turn all of that into automation. So it should be nice and translatable to a timeline, and everything should kind of be contained within these clips. So, you know, we might create some other variations. Maybe we can create some variations once we get into the timeline as well. Let's think about, let's make something maybe on the modular, and then we can come back in here and start doing a little bit of arrangement. And if you guys hear anything else that you think we should tweak, let me know. I think this thing's kind of funky, the sound with this lead, so to speak, if it's such a thing. We can mess with all that stuff. Okay, so let's maybe come over to the modular and talk about the complex oscillator for a minute, because we were talking about how we might use this thing. Again, we'll find out how recording goes with this thing while we're streaming and doing everything else. But so this is the DPO from Make Noise. This is a dual complex oscillator. If you're looking for something like this in VCV rack, maybe some of you guys can recommend a VCV rack dual oscillator. But in Reactor, there are some dual oscillator modules in Reactor blocks. I'm sure there's got to be some in VCV rack, but this is effectively doing the work of two oscillators in an FM circuit with some complicated cross modulation potentially from one side to the other. And yes, this is live 10, Anthony. But most of the stuff that we're doing should be still pretty applicable in live 9, maybe even 8. Things like clip envelopes, all that stuff, all pretty much have existed for quite some time. So in the DPO and any complex oscillator, for the most part, we're going to see two oscillator sections. One section on the one side, another section on in this kind of middle section. We can make them modulate each other using this FM bus, this internal frequency modulation bus. One of our oscillators has the ability to run at low frequency oscillator rates. As well, it can sync or frequency lock to our first oscillator. There's also a follow function, so if the pitch is changing on one oscillator, the pitch will change in related values on the other oscillator. The middle oscillator here is kind of our main oscillator. This one is going to be sort of effectively our modulator, carrier modulator. And then this middle oscillator passes through some wave shaping and wave folding and wave bending in a sense, and we can modulate this via the modulation oscillator as well. So we have a great deal of tonal shapeability coming out of something like this, even just from a sine wave. But you'll notice that this channel has 3 different oscillator modes. This one has 3 different oscillator modes: triangle, saw, or sine wave on the modulation side, sine, square, or final, as they call it, on the carrier. And the final output is the signal source that goes through all of our modulation over here. So if we plug in the sine wave, let's see if we get a signal. Tell me if you hear this. Should be coming through there. And with this, we can start to increase the FM modulation bus. Notice that little red light turns on. And OSCIX from VCV, that sounds like it could be it. And then as soon as we start increasing the level of any of these white knobs, these 2 white knobs on each oscillator, modulation will start to go back and forth, right? From the modulation side to the oscillator, or to the carrier side, as we turn up the carrier's FM controls. And we can go the other way as well. So we can do cross modulation, complicated amounts of cross modulation, where both oscillators are frequency modulating each other. Things get really crazy really fast when we do that. So we can start maybe with one of these, right? We start by turning up the FM modulation bus in the middle, that blue knob, and then we can turn up the linear FM knob here on the carrier. This is the FM index, the amount of frequency modulation, like controlling the level knob on our modulators in Operator yesterday. And as we change the frequency on our modulator, we can go down to low frequencies. So we can hear kind of very, very slight LFO style modulation, vibrato, right? We can very drastically limit that. And then we can overdo it. We can go way further in pitch when frequency modulating on this module than we can in most of our digital synthesizers. They might top out at a major third or a perfect fifth at most in terms of the modulation range, right? In terms of how high and low the frequency modulation will take that pitch. But on a module, we might be able to really drastically overdo it and get into ranges of sounds that we can't get into on a kind of a refined, prescribed tool for FM like Operator. We might be able to go deeper on other FM synthesizers, purely a matter of like kind of the decision-making process by the instrument maker. But so this is sine wave modulating a sine wave. And we can do both linear and exponential frequency modulation at once. turn the FM control knobs on our modulator, we start performing cross modulation, where the modulator is modulating the carrier and the carrier is modulating the modulator. And even slight changes. Potentially very volatile, right? Okay, so when would we choose linear over exponential? Linear is going to give us more of the traditional um, digital style FM results, meaning the pitch is going to stay a lot closer to the original tuning um, of our carrier, right? Once we start employing exponential, the tuning starts going a little bit way off, right? Um, so as we increase the exponential side, we start to go pretty much way out from the tuning of the original oscillator. You hear it going up. Linear should maintain a little bit closer to the original pitch. Once you get to extremes, there might be some change, but you can hear it's a lot less tuning difference. At its extreme, it's like a half step or a whole step higher. But it maintains that frequency a lot easier. Now, in functional use, we could try this out in LFO mode. As we start to bring up the exponential side, okay, so let's listen to this tuning, all right? When we turn up the FM bus, this is now going to be taking the pitch up and down by about an octave, okay? So this is exponential synthesis, or exponential FM. The pitch is going up an octave, doubling the frequency of the current pitch of the oscillator, and then down an octave, halving the frequency of the current oscillator's pitch. Does that make sense? So this is exponential, meaning that to go this distance in either direction, it has to be operating on an exponential scale like our frequency spectrum, right? To go up an octave, it has to double the frequency. To go down an octave, it has to halve the frequency. And that's a different amount of pitch change, right? The frequency difference is double, right? If we're going from A440 to an octave higher, that's A880. If we go an octave lower than that A440, it's 220. So we're going 220 cycles, hertz down, 440 up to get that range. And that's why we're going to get a lot more of this noticeable pitch change. If we think about linear, it's going to go the same distance down and up, the same number of hertz or frequencies. It's going to go down. If it's going down an octave, it's going to go down to 220. But when it goes up, it's also going to go up 220. So it oscillates around that frequency in a more even amount of a frequency pitch change. So that there's a great explanation from Synthesizer Keith on his YouTube channel. He kind of graphs it all out on a piece of paper, so that might be useful. Highly recommend that video. But this is just with a sine wave. Okay, we're just getting all of this. The nice thing about the FM bus is we can route an envelope into this. We can set our FM amounts, and then we can modulate that FM input, and it will basically turn this knob up and down for us. So that's our sine wave output. Now, of course, what we could do here is route one of these other outputs into the FM inputs down here. So let's say we take the sawtooth wave out and route it into the linear input. And then we turn up the linear control. That's actually exponential. This is linear. Or triangle output. A lot cooler sine wave. It's going to be very similar to that triangle probably. Do some hard syncing and frequency modulation. Cross modulation. Of course, we should just be recording this whole thing the whole time that we're messing with it, but okay. And let's maybe turn down the frequency cross modulation. Okay, so that's all with the sine wave. We can do the same thing with a square wave. Cross modulation of a square wave, and then we have the final output, and this is kind of the fun part, because here we have basically a sine wave, and we can alter the shape. I think my shape knob actually, or my fold knob, has a messy pot, so there might be like a particularly crunchy point. Love the DPO and low pitches. And if we use the mod bus here, this uses our modulation oscillator to modulate the inputs of each of these. So if the white knobs are turned up, we're going to get frequency rate modulation, or audio rate modulation. Yeah, really nice and dirty. Oh, that's a lock button. That's phase locking, I believe, the phase of this oscillator and this oscillator. Put it into low frequency mode, and then it's an LFO modulating all of these parameters, and still do frequency modulation. I mean, come on. We can dial it back to something that will very closely tonally represent a sine wave, and we can even dial it back to silence, and then we can strike the fold. It'll open up briefly, kind of like a low pass gate, kind of a built-in low pass gate in a sense. So just, as I think a couple of people mentioned there are a few oscillators like this in the VCV rack, the Squinky Labs EV3, the what was the other one you guys mentioned up there? The OSCIX or something like that. It's all back up there in the chat. Yeah, you could definitely do a lot with just one DPO. What's up, DivKid? Thanks for joining us. Matt Lang has previously said that the DPO is his favorite kick drum oscillator because we can, it's kind of hefty for just a kick drum, but I mean, we looked at yesterday using FM to get some kick drums, and you got a whole world of tone shaping and different types of kick drums in there too. So very interesting application of this thing. So maybe let's record this thing. Let's get back into an audio track here, and this should be okay. We'll see how this does with recording. I have no idea what's going to happen with the live stream and real-time audio recording. I am on very high latency settings, so we'll certainly have to do a little bit of tweaking. But I figure let's just record some insanity coming in, and I'm going to mute the channel too while we record. Oh, and let's just stop everything else. And we'll record again. Okay, so it should be now live recording, and I'll just, we'll just get this thing a crank in and do some recording of it. Maybe we'll make some risers or sample out of whatever we make here. we'll see how that goes. Just got a bunch of stuff. Let's stop the recording. See if you guys are still there. And let's switch back over to the desktop. Okay. So, here we go. We got a bit of audio now, right? How's it faring up down there? You Brits, I love your way of speaking. All right, let's take a look here at what we got. All right, so we got a chunk of sound, and I think there's all kinds of funky shit in there. And now let's turn this off, turn the channel back on. All right, what should we do now? Should we do some arrangement? Shall we take this thing into some usable form? Yeah, I think we got some good sound effects in there that we can use as some growing, evolving textures, that type of thing. You know, we could always do some destructive manipulation of this sample using some of the warp modes or something like that, right? We could just stretch the whole thing out, or, you know, that way. Sorry if that was blasting you guys out of the water when I was recording it. I tried to watch the levels, but you know, when it gets high frequencies, that's when it gets a little bit harder to control. So, okay, we got some great stuff in there, especially now that we stretched it out. That's half of the fun. So, yeah, nice and raw, nice and shreddy. So let's take all of this stuff into the timeline. How do we get it there? A couple of different ways. Okay, the timeline, by the way, we can just tab between these views over here, and we might have to kind of shrink some things down here to fit everything on screen. Let's maybe go back to our zoom amount. That's a little bit better. Okay, so we can see we got all of our tracks over here, and to get the audio or our MIDI clips or whatever it might be over there, we could just hit record up here and hit play on our clips as we go, and it will record what we're doing in real time into the arrangement. So if you like doing that, if you like working that way, then great. We can do that. If you have like a push, or if you have a button controller like a launch pad, you could do all of this by hand and kind of, you know, with human interaction, create an arrangement. But I rarely do it that way. I like to just grab all of the stuff that I've made over here and drag it over to the timeline where I can start to put it in place. So I'm just going to click on one clip here. I'm going to hit Control A, or Command A as the case might be for you. I'm going to click, like I'm going to drag all of this stuff somewhere. And then while I'm still holding the mouse button, I'm going to hit the Tab button. And it brings me over to the arrangement view. And I can just click and drag these things. We'll just make sure that they're actually going to go to the right tracks. Ooh, that's a weird bug. It doesn't show me what the track names are. But I'm going to put them right there. And there we go. And now I can just focus on this side by hitting any of these little play buttons at the end of the tracks, or by hitting this universal one up in the upper right-hand corner of our timeline. And this will focus Ableton on the timeline as opposed to on these clips, which we've been playing up until now. So we'll hit this little button up here. See, they're kind of grayed out and hazy right now, these things, right? If we hit this little button, boom, they're a lot more dense and colorful now. Okay, there's our audio clip. One thing we can do is maybe just like trim that thing from the start. We'll deal with this thing in a minute. So You can see how much longer that bit is than what we have in here. All right, well, let's. How do we start a techno track? Drums, atmosphere. Let's see. Let's try taking a lot of this stuff and just kind of like scooting it on down the line here. Let's take some of these other parts. Basically just going to move things out of the way and down the line here. And then we have some space at the beginning that we can start to shape things. Okay. So if we start at the beginning, and let's extend that loop out a bit. Atmosphere from the recorded sounds. I like that idea. So maybe we could make another atmospheric element from these things. We could find a space inside of this. This is why we say always hit record, because we get some just shredding business happening in here. All right, let's do some granular with this audio. Let's take a tiny chunk of it. I like where you guys are going with this granular stuff. All right, let's take a chunk out of this. We'll just take the whole thing for a moment. We'll crop it once we're in the synth or sampler. Yeah, I can understand if Ableton is not the jive for other people. Plus, if you're looking for something cheap and you're mostly in the hardware world, you might look at something like Reaper, which also has tons of bells and whistles, but it's a very commonly used tool for audio, for mixing, for mastering. It's kind of becoming one of the go-to tools for that, and it's super cheap. I think you can get it for free actually, but I think the price is $60 or something like that. It's totally worth it. It's a great synth or great DAW, and you know we need something to record to if we want to save what we're doing. So having some sort of DAW situation, some sort of multi-tracking is. I love ablutions. Maybe not so much, but Ableton, yes. It is very German. Sometimes we see these funky things in the German tools, but funky names, things like this. Okay, so let's find a segment of this long ass bit. Let's maybe find something at the end. Let's just take like this. Okay, lots of good stuff. And let's crop this. So we're going to make this long sample much shorter. And it's still probably too loud or too long, but here, let's convert this to sampler. That'll make our lives easier. We're going to turn on looping. We're going to make a tiny micro loop. Crossfade the ends of that loop a little bit. That's a lot. Okay, and then we can modulate, not with that LFO, but with these LFOs. Turn on, there we go. We're going to randomize on both of these. We're going to choose our destinations. We're going to choose loop start and loop length. We're going to turn up those frequencies a bit. Might have to really minimize that range of modulation. Might turn off snapping. Oh yeah. It's starting to sound kind of cool. And we can take a reverb. I'm just going to use the Ableton reverb because it's pretty cost effective in terms of the CPU. That seems like something that we could maybe like keep as a secret till later. That's kind of got this really epic. Bendu, what's up, man? Good to see you. Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty shredding. Good idea, you guys. Okay, well, we got a lot of extra stuff now. Now we're in arrangement and we're going back to composition, but that's okay. Or sound design, whatever we want to call it. This is sounding extra thin because of that filter. Or maybe it's just sounding thin compared to the sound we just made, which was fucking epic. Okay, so now I'm siding with that new sound. Let's turn off this coin thing. Let's create a new clip in here. Shift Control M or Command M if you're on a Mac, and God damn, that's a fire sound right there. Yes, this is a recording of the DPO that we just kind of like hit record and twisted some knobs, got some shredding cross modulation and audio rate modulation of the shaping and the final segment. And now we've taken a bit of that, we've loaded it into granular style synthesis picture here. We've loaded into sampler, and we've set up sampler to do some granular synth style manipulation, and we've just taken a tiny little loop of what we recorded and we put it in here. We're going to take some other pieces of that recording as sound effects later as well. But here now we've got, let's just maybe scoot the coin situation down the way. And we've got this sound. Maybe we will duplicate our side chain to this thing. So when the kick drum comes in, we should get some effect. We could even maybe like turn down the gain of the sidechain source. Automate that kind of turning up. Something like that. Maybe we could try starting this kick drum earlier, and we'll automate. We'll automate the channel turning on there. That way, we should still get some side chaining up front. But again, then we can like minimize that. Right? What if we like start the side chain at nothing and it kind of like comes up to 0? We can hold shift and that will fine tune. Okay, let's try that. Start there. Okay, so, you know, this is kind of getting into that territory of should we use a silent kick drum and just have like a sidechain source going from the beginning of the track to the end of the track? And maybe yes, maybe no. Why don't we do that? Let's just duplicate this operator track. And the one on top here will turn into our silent kick drum. That way we don't have to mess so much with this. We can just put it where we want it. But we're going to get the effect of side chaining the whole time. So let's just come back and make sure that this is pointing to the right. Yep, that's the silent one. And this is where naming things starts to become really useful. So let's name this the silent kick. We'll name this one our main kick. And so now in theory, it should still work. We can extend this silent kick the whole track. We're never going to hear it, but it's going to be up there doing its thing. And that way, even when our kick drum does drop out, it's still doing its thing, right? Okay. So, and you know what might be also be cool is if we duplicate this hi-hat. Let's just name the rest of these things. This is our grungy kick. This is our, we'll call this Euclidean kick, because it's kind of doing that 5/16 Euclidean rhythm pattern, that gung 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 gung, that type of thing. You like that impression? We'll maybe duplicate our hi-hat. Maybe one of these will be the one type of hi-hat, one of them will be the other. That way we can layer them together. We'll maybe tune them differently, so one's a little bit higher, one's a little bit more, tight and that type of thing. You guys fans of Euclidean rhythms out there? If you aren't, then you need to recognize. We're going to be doing Euclidean rhythms sometime very soon, also, by the way. Okay, so we got like the first 30 seconds, kind of something's happening, but let's keep the groove going, right? Like 30 seconds isn't going to be much of a techno track, so let's keep that. We bring that kick drum in. Let's just keep it going for a while. We can start to layer in some of these other parts, like our grungy kick drum maybe comes in over there. We'll save some of these bits. In fact, maybe we'll just take a 2-bar pattern of that grungy kick drum. Control or Command D duplicates things, makes things a little bit easier. Never hesitate to change drastically the tempo of your project also. That might end us up in something totally different feeling and might love it. Kind of sounds dope at 92, I have to say. All right. Now, okay, one thing we should mention also, and this is something where you techno fanatics can fill us in a little bit. One of the elements that we need to pay attention to when we're analyzing the music in the style that we're trying to make, techno in this particular case, we might need to know what are the common phrase lengths in that style of music, right? This is something that DJs have to count and think about all the time. If you're playing, a house music or a techno set or dubstep set or whatever it is, you kind of have to know where do the phrases overlap? Where, is it, do the dubstep producers work in 4-bar segments, 8-bar segments? Where should the hi-hat come in if the techno DJs are going to play this track? Where would they want it to come in? Where would they expect it to come in? Sometimes this has to be brought into the range of awareness for us so that we can, again, please the fanatics and get our music played by the people who we want to play our music, which in this case I would assume would be techno DJs, right? And if we come in here and we're making 4-bar segments in, something maybe more akin to what we would see in like a beat scene, lo-fi, hip-hop type of vibe, then the techno DJs might go, I can't play this. It's supposed to be 32 bars long per segment, not 8 bars per segment, or not. The song is supposed to be 8 minutes long, not 3 minutes long, and this might, be an important factor if we want our music to be performed by the fanatics and to be performed for the fanatics. So we might need to consider how long are those phrases, right? Anyone know what's the phrase length in techno? I'm going to say at least 8 bars. Tech house is more like 8 bars or 16 bars. 8 bars might not be enough for techno. Those people like to get into it. They like to zone out and dance for a while before something changes. And another thing is once we introduce stuff, we probably want to try to maintain it for a while or else it feels like the bottom drops out. So let's make sure that our LFO is turned off for this particular track. This is our open hi-hat. We might want to maybe elongate the length of this. Okay. So, hey, now we've got almost a minute. We're not going to listen to the whole thing every time, by the way. Okay, so I think maybe we want that segment to go like an extra 8 bars. So one really cool thing in Ableton is we can kind of highlight a segment like this. I learned this from my co-producer LPGOB. We can come up here and we can, under the edit menu with a certain amount of time highlighted, we can come over here to edit, duplicate time. And it's just going to take the amount of time I've got highlighted and it's going to duplicate it and sandwich it in between the end of the amount of highlighted time and whatever comes afterwards. So I'm going to hit duplicate time. There it goes. And we got now an extra bit, an extra 8 bars. All right, that's not what's going to happen there, but that was LPGOB. That's her name. Okay. Okay, we got something happening in there. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. We got something happening here, and now we need to kind of keep the energy going. Maybe one way we could do that is let's find a little embellishment out of this big cut of DPO audio. Ooh, I like that bit. Let's take that right there. Maybe it goes over the bar line too, like into the next segment. Might need to bring the level down. Oh, that's way too long. Okay, let's let's take this bit. Let's actually shorten this again. So I halved the speed of this bit, so okay, I kind of like that. We need to do a little bit of coloring to this sound. It's a little extra dry. So one thing we could try, I mean, one of my favorites is grain delay. to need to have like some sort of little fade at the beginning of this thing, so maybe we can fade this in a ways. Yeah, little nasally. Yeah, that was the right move. Start that a little earlier. We'll have like a little 4-bar break there, and then we'll maybe bring all of that stuff back in. You make all the suggestions you want to make. I'm fine with it. Okay, and then we'll just take that bit and we'll keep it on going there. Maybe we'll not take the coin sound in there yet. Let's see, maybe we keep this thing going. Okay, that's something. Maybe we could take this thing. Where are my fades? I don't see my fades, but that's okay. What's up, Nathan? Thanks for joining us. Okay. No, that's not the fades either. Oh, there's no fades because this isn't audio. Duh. Okay, so let's do some fading out of that signal. Let's just get rid of the channel strip for the time being. And okay, and we could get that thing to keep on going, perhaps. Let's see, I think maybe there we'll take these drums, click, and or control or option clicking and dragging to copy. That's right, Wambra. You give him shit. Where you been, Nathan? just playing, of course. Always happy to see you in here. Okay, let's see. Now we're starting to get something. Now, again, please, by all means, give us some feedback. Rhythmic gates on the pulsing. I like that. That's a good idea. Ooh, you know what we could use on that is there's a great Max for Live audio effect called the, what is it, gated delay? Yeah, there it is. This is built into the Creative Extensions Max for Live patch, or Max for Live pack, which is free under the packs segment. Here's Creative Extensions. Very cool shit. So we have this gated delay, which might be cool over here. We'll see how it sounds after the side chain. We might have to put it beforehand. Let's see. And this gives us a pattern sequence that we can start to backwards. Oh, rate should be 8th or 16th notes. Delay time, maybe we'll make subtle. Hi-hat's just way too loud, I think. Here's something we could automate. How about the hi-hat length? So oscillator A decay time. What if we just take that, oops, take it down. Whoops, that's not what I want. Why are you doing that? Okay, fine. I'll just do it like this. Should be shorter. Purely accidental, but kind of a cool dropout anyway. can also turn up the dry wet at the end of this thing as it starts to go. And then we'll also turn up the feedback, get some lingering, dusty bits. I don't think this segment of this thing fits really. Oh yeah, that. So that is kind of cool. Let's maybe fade into that. I don't know about this bass line. Let's see. I feel like that part could go longer. Maybe that's my problem. Thing back in. I feel like maybe we could play around with this. This LFO too. So we're using this built-in filter LFO to turn our filter frequency knob for us. I feel like this thing could maybe be changing in pitch as well. So what if we come into this audio clip and we will make this thing go up in pitch. Let's start like this. We could make it go down in pitch too. Maybe that's extra low. Wicked. Let's maybe take this side chain, copy it to this sound, and then maybe we'll do that similar automation of the side chaining, or the input for the side chain. So most of the time it's not going to side chain. But then when it gets to this point, maybe at the very last 4 bars of this or something, then it comes up and starts side chaining. Let's see, we can type in edit value, we'll just make that 0. Boom. And then we can just bring it all the way right back down. That's one way to go. We could go up alternatively. Maybe it makes more sense to go up, but or maybe you just kind of like bounce up and down. Oh, yeah, we don't want to go all the way to the end of that. We want to end there. I feel like this bass line isn't really cutting it. Let's take these parts and hit the 0 key and deactivate them. They're all still going to live on the other side of things, but maybe we'll scoot that on down. I feel like we need like a nice short pattern for the bass, like, you know, like a 3-note pattern or something like that. What's the wrong one? Something that's going to overlap. So I just played a couple of notes, and then up here in the transport bar on Ableton, there's this little box corner type of thing that will take whatever you just played and put it in a clip. So what if we take this thing, just shorten this to like a 3/4 note pattern. Might need to, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Quantize, not Command Q, it's Command U. Oh, also changed my tempo. Maybe we could double the time of this. See how that sounds with the beat. Might be too simple. Yeah, that's the part I'm maybe least happy with right now. But all right, we're starting to get somewhere. Let's listen to what we have. Let's maybe turn that gated delay on at a certain point, like there. Need to get this car revving sound in the background in this track. Yeah, I like that. We need a thumpier kick drum hitting in there. Maybe we can extend slightly the decay time on this kick drum. So 5 notes on a 5-step for the bass. Kind of did that, but it's got some rests in there. I just think this isn't really like a techno style sounding bass. Maybe. Okay, that feels a little bit cooler. Try a different filter. It's a little bit extra resonance. Let's maybe coming out of the compressor a little. Yeah. Another cool thing about these filters is that we can sidechain the filter to itself. So we can make this thing catch and be kind of bounced and triggered on the impacts of the notes. So we sidechain the incoming signal, or really what's coming out of this channel, and we use this envelope follower. And as we turn up that level, it's going to bounce the frequency as we go. We're getting somewhere. We've got almost 3 minutes of a track now, and it's 2 o'clock. I think we should cut it for the time being, and then maybe we come back and we really finish this thing off with a little bit of mixing and mastering and of course, before that, the finished arrangement. Um, maybe we could do that. Maybe we do it tomorrow. Maybe we do it next week. I think tomorrow. Why not? Let's try our experiment one more time. Let's see what happens when we do another sound recreation process. I still have some examples, and I can take these headphones off slightly. I still have some examples that you guys sent um, from last Friday, so we can do some of those. I think there's a couple. There's another techno track. There's another house track. So we'll pick a couple of those sounds. If you guys were um, the people who submitted those sounds, just try to, if you can, be here so you can direct me to the, excuse me, the music production burps. You can direct me to the right sounds that you want to recreate in case I should happen to miss those. But um, yeah, tomorrow we'll do another sound re-engineering attempt, reverse engineering, um, sound recreation, that type of thing. Um, and oh, beef Wellington, making me hungry in here. So yeah, tomorrow we'll do another sound alike thing, and maybe Monday or Tuesday of next week we'll finish this bad boy up, or maybe Saturday. I don't know. We'll see what comes. I think we're making some headway now. Hopefully that there was some useful exploration in there. This was a worthwhile experiment just to see if we could record audio while we're doing the live stream. So I think it's we learned a lot of things here, and fortunately, the live stream setup seems to be working. So yeah, on tomorrow at noon, we'll be back, and we'll keep on doing this. And as always, I deeply appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out with us. And if you get a chance, spread the word and invite your friends. And we'll do this all one more time tomorrow, and again and again and again. All right. Awesome. Say, wave goodbye, dancing baby. Bye. Okay. See you guys next time.